Welcome to our Mary Hytken Dumont Jewish University here at Anshe Sfar Beth Elameth congregation. It's great to see everybody. I have a slight problem here. I'm just going to do this. Great. And it's good to see everyone tonight and good to have you with us. Our first discussion tonight is the limitations of organized religion. Generally, during these 4 weeks, we'll be looking at cutting edge of Jewish values. We know there's certain Jewish values. We hold them dear, we hold them near. It's clear what those values are. But the question is, what about the cutting edge of those values? So we know there are a lot of elements of Jewish faith which involve organized religion. Let's face it. We are part of organized religion as much as Lahavdil, the Catholic Church, or anyone else. We are part of organized religion. And what I want to talk about tonight is the cutting edge of that, meaning you figure that the Jewish sources would be completely in favor of organized religion. After all, we are, if nothing else, we are the proponents of organized religion. We are the synagogue, right? Not the church, but we are the synagogue with a capital S. But nonetheless, I want to show that in the various areas of organized religion, there are certain hesitations, certain limitations that we need to be aware of. If you ask yourself, what are the institutions of organized Jewish religion, right? So what are they? Right? The shuls, right? The schools, right? Right. The institutions, mikveh, right. I'm talking about a place where people belong, something that people are supposed to go to as a group. Yeah, the mikveh is more of a ritual. I put that in more of a particular ritual. Here, an institution that you're supposed to go to, belong to, a ritual that's communal in it's organized. It's part of organized religion in that it's very organized. Probably in some communities, it's such a big, the mikveh is an institution, it's true. What else? Right, that was Mordechai Kaplan's idea that a shul is a Beit Knesset. A synagogue really is a Jewish community center. It wasn't supposed to be a synagogue and a Jewish community. So it was supposed to be that the synagogue is a Jewish center. Many synagogues are therefore called the Jewish center in light of that. So if we look here, we list the temples, the Beit HaMikdash. The Kohanim are an institution. The Kohanim are part of an organized institution. We have one more chair right here. Nancy, come on in. Kohanim are part of an organized institution. The very idea of being part of a community is an institution, right? And the idea of a minyan is a communal institution where it's the greatest idea anyone ever came up with, which is, if we don't have 10 men, you can't start, right? we go out of business. If you don't have 10, we can't do it. It's a wonderful communal institution, and I want to look at the cutting edge of each one of these. So let's start with the Beit HaMikdash itself, the holiest institution, that which we all look...
The driving force institution is the rabbinate.
The rabbinate, yes, absolutely. That's what? Right. The center of power of the organized religion is always the head of it, which many times the lay leadership, sometimes, or is it the rabbinic leadership? There was often a struggle between the Nasi and the Av Beit Din in the Mishnaic period, the head of the community, the head of Sanhedrin, more of a lay leader, and the Nasi, and the Nasi was the more of a lay leader, head of the Beit Din, more of a religious leader. The Reish Galuta in Babylonia, there was the heads of the yeshiva, the rabbis, and then there was the head of the community. Good. So we're going to look at the limitations of the rabbinate as well. So we begin with the institution of the Beit HaMikdash, the holiest institution, that which we look forward to every day in our prayers, that which we long for. But on the other hand, there's got to be a cutting edge to it. So we turn to Sforno, whose work in English was translated into English by my former rabbi, Rabbi Pelkovitz from Far Rockaway. And we have copies of it here if you ever want to look at it. Who would like to read that for us, what he says about the temples? As we reach toward the end of Parshat Yitro, heading into Truma and Tetzaveh, talking about the gold and the silver and all that. So then after the Ten Commandments, the Torah says we should not make an altar, we should make an altar of earth, an earthen altar. Not a copper altar like it says later, an earthen altar. The rabbis try to figure out how to work those two together. He says, don't even make it of hewn stone. I don't want you carving anything with metal. It should be very simple. You just take a bunch of dirt, push it together, put the sacrifice, and that's good enough. That's what it says after the Ten Commandments. Sforno explains how this temple seems to be in such contrast to the gaudy temple of gold, copper, and silver that we find later on. Who would like to read that for us? The Sforno. Vakasha. Elaine?
It's not necessary to make temples of silver and gold and precious stones in order to bring me close to you, but it is sufficient to build an altar of earth. Make me a sanctuary for me to dwell therein was a step he had not originally contemplated. Previously, he had been satisfied with make me an altar of earth. Whenever I make a mention of my name, I will come to you. But from now on, he required Kohanim. The tribe of Levi was not chosen to serve until after the incident of the golden calf.
So in these two little paragraphs, two little comments, which institutions is he ripping into?
The temple.
And
The
the Kohanim. He claims that according to the original plan, original meaning before what? Before the golden calf, before the original sin of the Jewish people, the collective original sin. Before that, we were not supposed to have an ornate temple, altars of copper and gold and silver, right? In the eventual temple, there will be a copper altar for sacrifices and a gold altar for incense. Forget about it. None of that would be allowed. And as far as Kohanim, they were chosen later. They were chosen later. We'll get back to that part about the Kohanim a little bit later. Now, so why then is the Mishkan, the temple, so gaudy? What would he say? Why is it so gaudy? When? According to him, he said it when? After the golden. Right, now if you look in the Torah, the temple comes first, golden calf comes second. According to this, you have to take Rashi's view, I think Ibn Ezra too, that the story is told out of order. First, Moshe went up and learned various laws, did not include a temple, came down golden calf, went back up, received the laws of the temple, came down, went up and down. Finally, Yom Kippur, he comes down, tells them about the temple. And that's when they start collecting after Yom Kippur, put up the Mishkan 6 months later in Nisan. So he says there wasn't supposed to be a temple altogether. But because of the golden calf, what does the golden calf have to do with having a gaudy temple?
Good question.
Yeah.
Have to do something with all the gold that they
Okay.
were so.
Well, the gold, he smashed it. He smashed that gold. You can't use it anymore.
But now it's symbolically being used for good instead of for sin.
Good instead of evil. Very Get Smart-esque. Yes?
Well, what about using, they took all this stuff from Mitzrayim.
Good. Well, that would indicate, if the gold they had acquired in Egypt was meant to be used for the sanctuary, that would indicate that was part of the original plan. Of course, sin is always part of the original plan, right? Snafu. Things going wrong is always part of the original plan.
Hashem knows everything.
Right.
You know that's going to happen.
Right. But nonetheless, right. Maybe we get back to that. It's a good point. But also, if the Jews say, oh, we've got to gather the gold, we've got to make something out of gold, so God says, go ahead, make my day, go ahead and do it, but do it under the following circumstances. So actually the rules of the Torah changed. Okay. The rabbis have another way of jiving these verses of the earthen altar and the copper altar. They say you could do both. But this is the simple reading the Sforno, Italian commentator from the 16th century, suggests.
It all comes from earth. The copper and the gold come from earth, so. For a naturalist, there's no difference between gold and dirt. But in the human society, there's a big difference. Right? Now,
I want to ask you why.
Yes.
Oh, this is a crazy question. I got to ask it. Why did the Lord say build a fancy Mishkan after the golden calf? Why did that precipitate the fancy taken from the earth to what was the reasoning behind?
Well, I'm saying once he saw that we needed something gaudy and gold, and we were drawn after idolatry, which is a very materialistic culture. Right? Go to any museum, you'll see all the golden sculptures. So he's all right, no sculptures, but you'll have a golden temple.
Okay.
Right. So now, why is the temple so gaudy? So because of the golden calf, but also there's a Talmudic principle: ein aniyut b'makom ashirut. You can't have anything cheap, it's like the synagogue. Nothing cheap allowed in a place of beauty, right? You can't say, the chairs are ruined. Let's just put in some plastic folding chairs.
In a place of wealth and honor and dignity, you can't have cheap stuff. It's a Talmudic principle. It's mentioned many times, including Talmud 29a, which sounds a lot like Psalm 96. We say on Friday night. We say it when we put away the Torah. Hod v'adar lefanav, oz v'tiferet mikdasho. That there's great splendor and honor and majesty before God. Strength and beauty are in His sanctuary. And therefore, there's an interesting law. And it's one which I've discussed with some of you. It's somewhat offensive. And that if you have a disabled individual, he can't serve in the sanctuary of God.
Not even a musician?
And this seems very, very offensive. Very offensive. Very offensive. Very offensive. How could you take someone, what do you mean? It says in the Talmud Sanhedrin that God dwells among lepers. I mean, it's not, the Christians got it from us. That's where God is. He's among those who are downtrodden. So how could he say that if he has chapter 21 in Leviticus, that if they have any kind of blemish, you can't use them for the temple? Comes the Rambam in the Guide to Perplexed and says, Ronald, would you read that for us? The Guide to Perplexed? Yeah, get your glasses. Okay. Steve?
In order to raise the estimation of the temple, those who ministered therein received great honor, and the priests and Levites were therefore distinguished from the rest. It was commanded that the priests should be clothed properly with beautiful and good garments, holy garments for glory and for beauty.
Glory of whom? Another possibility?
Of the priests.
Yes, the possibility that the Kohanim should walk around with glory. Yes. Continue. A Kohen.
A Kohen that had a blemish was not allowed to officiate. I'm sorry.
Sure.
And not only those that had a blemish were excluded from the service, but also, according to the Talmudic interpretation of this precept, those that had an abnormal appearance. For the
So now this is the key line. Listen to this. I'll just read this line. For the multitude does not estimate man by his true form, but by the perfection of his bodily limbs and the beauty of his garments. And the temple is to be held in great reverence by all. Translation, you know why blemished people can't serve in the temple?
It's a bunch of other people.
Get deeper.
Because people are dumb.
Because, thank you. Right? People are fools, right? Right? Look at the electorate, right? The article in today's Haaretz. So, because the masses are so materialistic and so mistaken and so misguided, the temple must be a place of tremendous glory. Nothing, so only silver allowed. Even if you're collecting the ashes, you use all kinds of fancy materials to collect them. The blood is, I think the cup that they gave to this cow to drink, so his skin would be looser. I think it was a golden cup. They spare no expense. Why? Is it because great glory in front of God? Like the verse says? Is that it? Because in a place of glory of God, there can be no poverty? Or is it because people are fools and people are drawn to gaudiness and to wealth and
Movie stars?
Right.
I mean, Lavda.
Right. You want the Kohanim to be movie stars. In other words, we know that the kids are going to worship LeBron James. You want the Kohen to be a more cool dude than the most famous movie star. Correct. Moving along. Yes.
Let's take it back to what we're talking about. Beauty is in the eyes of what the mores of the time say beauty is. Dirt could have been beauty and silver and gold. Horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we get all this writing from that presumes these things?
Right, so it's purely a human construct, right? And God says to me, gold. In other words, gold is not for you. It's for right. In other words, in God's eyes, there ain't no difference between the fancy temple with the gold and silver and a little steeple that some guy in Brooklyn made, and it smells from herring, and the chairs are broken.
Unless we go back to what you said before for the Kohanim. Maybe this was for God. He needed something beautiful to look at.
I don't think so.
It's
That's not what you think.
right. That's a Platonic sort of an ideal. That beauty is not merely a human construct, but beauty is something real. It's the perfect forms, right? Plato talks about the perfect form. So it's the perfect form. Perfect form. What should a person look like? Perfect form. What should a temple look like? What are the perfect materials? Right. So it could be that there's a temple up in heaven, and it doesn't look like some broken steeple. It looks like the one that we used to have in Jerusalem. Could be.
If we start with the beginning of time, as I feel, God needed people.
Okay, that's a Heschel.
that's a theory
That's a Heschel idea. Yes.
God doesn't need
Maybe God needed this beauty.
Okay, you could say like this. Here's a Kabbalistic way of saying what Ronald just said. Not so much philosophically to say that God needs something means that he's lacking something. That's a problem. But to say that in order for God to express all the things that he is, one of which is ultimate beauty, right? A hod, one of the, it's the fifth characteristic of God. Look on the Torah mantles when you open the ark. The fifth thing is splendor, okay? So God has to express splendor in this world. Somebody's got to do it, whether it's an artist, and certainly why not in the Holy Temple in order to express what God is. God is not a schlepper with the broken tables and the smelly chairs. That's not God. It's not a reflection of God. The temple should reflect the greatness of God. That's good. So Rana wants to argue that the beauty of the temple, like Psalm 96, is fundamental. It's not a crummy institution. It's not the broken institution. It's not the institution that we have because we're stuck with it because people are so dumb. Rather, it is a reflection of the beauty and perfection and splendor of God. It perhaps would reflect on the imperfection of God if the people running around the temple were imperfect. Could be. There you have it. Thank you very much. Two ways of looking at the institution of the temple. Is it ideal or is it a concession to human frailty? Moving along. Kohanim. The notion that they're supposed to be Kohanim altogether. Sforno, as we said, attacks this concept. And let's take a look at what problem he has with the concept of Kohanim. And what does he say about it? Who would like to read that? Let's see.
You're at the bottom of the page?
No, Kohanim, next page. Next page, where it says 2. Sforno, Italian rabbi.
And you shall be a kingdom of Kohanim.
Okay, that's a verse in Exodus 19. It's supposed to be a kingdom of Kohanim. Go ahead.
Now this was the divine intent, had they not corrupted their ways of the golden calf. As it shall be in the future,
Isaiah 4:3.
Isaiah, anyone left in Zion or remaining in Jerusalem shall be called holy. Or Isaiah 61, you shall be called Kohanim.
Ideally, the Kohanim are supposed to be? Who's everybody? They're not supposed to be Kohanim, right? This notion that some lord over everyone else is Kohanim. Ideally, there wouldn't be Kohanim. Now, that doesn't mean we can jumpstart it, right? Some people want to say, okay, let's cancel it right now. Wait a second, right? Wait a second. But we live in a real world, and even the verse in Isaiah doesn't necessarily mean that the institution will go away. Ezekiel and other places, it seems to say that there'll always be Kohanim. The Torah is immutable. But conceptually, everyone was supposed to be Kohanim, every Jew. We were supposed to be Kohanim for the world. Conceptually, every Jew is a Kohen. And we said before that when did we lose it? Oh, Gavin, who became the Kohanim instead? Right, Levite. Now, some say the firstborn was supposed to be the Kohanim. There's a verse at the end of Mishpatim, Parshat Mishpatim, that says God sent the boys, the kids, and they offered offerings at Mount Sinai. The kids? How can the kids offer something? Because
We already divided up way before this.
One second. It could be that at Sinai the kids could still do it. Anybody could do it. Now, no. The question is, when did God divide the tribe of Levi? There is a verse in Deuteronomy that says, "Az yivdil Moshe shevet Levi." Then God chose the tribe of Levi. I believe it's after one of the sins, but we'll have to take a look.
But we were already calling Levi and so forth in Egypt.
The tribe of Levi was a tribe, but it doesn't mean they had any special role. Right. Yeah, it's not clear. For instance, when it says you should dedicate the firstborn, it doesn't say who to give it to, because there was no one to give it to. Later it says you should give it to the Kohen, but originally in Exodus it just says you should make them holy. Who do you give it to? Where do you give the money to? It doesn't say. Yes. So there is an idea that everyone was supposed to. So the institution of Kiuna, according to Sforno at least, again, you don't have to accept that. It's not like this rabbi in the 16th century it represents all of Jewish thought. But there is this question as to whether the idea of having one particular group, whether that's ideal, shouldn't it be more egalitarian, more equal, shouldn't you spread the wealth? There is a Rambam, passage in the Rambam, where the Rambam says, the end of the laws of Shemitah, that just like in Shemitah, everyone becomes, takes off a year to study Torah, hopefully, so too, anybody who wants to be a Levi could be a Levi. What does that mean? I don't know. Does he mean really a Levi or like a Levi, but not a Kohen? But it means someone wants to dedicate themselves completely to God. So perhaps there's an idea there as well that even today everyone could be a Levi in some weird way. Now let's turn to Rambam, Maimonides, not in the Guides Perplexed, right in the regular Mishnah Torah, in the end of the laws of Shemitah and Yovim. Now let's attack me. We've attacked the Kohanim, sorry about that. Now let's attack the rabbinate. And the cantor, anyone who performs, the rabbinate, the cantor, the Baal Koreh, anybody who's up there saying, I'm going to lead the congregation. So how do we deal with this, right? Who says, you just think about what I do every week. I'm going to tell you what to think, who to vote for. I'm going to tell you the way things are. Who am I? The cantor, he's going to lead the service. What about somebody else? So look at the, actually when you have a designated cantor, it makes it a little less difficult, because at least he's designated. Everyone already chose him, they voted for him. But let's say tonight we're going to have mincha and somebody says, oh, why don't you go up and lead the service? Who says it should be that guy? Let it be somebody else. So therefore we have the following rules, many people are aware of intuitively, or there's a passage in the Gemara in Brachot, 34a. Who would like to read that for us? Under 3. Go ahead.
Who comes to lead the services needs to refuse. You have to try telling that to Jack. If he does not refuse, he is like a soup that has no salt, and if he refuses too much, he is like a soup that was spoiled with salt. What should he do? First and second time he should refuse. Second, hesitate, and third, stretch out his feet and do it.
Right. I'm sorry, I threw in an extra time there. But in any event, right. So,
I tried to refuse.
Right. It could be that it means that at the end, does it mean you sort of stretch your feet, you hesitate again? Or does he mean like, let's get going, like a Roadrunner, so that's the question. Now, so there is an idea that you can't jump into these things, that no one's worthy of leading the services. You gotta say no to this type of thing right away. As a matter of fact, if we turn to the idea of the rabbinate, you have a statement that Shmaya, who was Hillel's teacher, who, by the way, was a descendant of converts, what does he say? Love work and hate the rabbinate. Now, some say it's not referring to the rabbinate, it's referring to rabbanut, meaning authority. You should avoid authority. Don't be the president, don't be the head of something. It could be, but it could be it's talking about the rabbinate. But it's very strange. We're supposed to hate rabbis. God forbid. There's an idea that the rabbi should conduct himself in a way that people should say that they love that type of person, and there is good reflection on the Torah itself and on God himself. But let's look at the Reb Chaim of Volozhin, known simply as Reb Chaim. He was the head of the school that eventually led to the Soloveitchik chain. He was the first teacher. He was a student of the Vilna Gaon. He says, who would like to read that? Larissa, would you read that?
We love the work in the rabbinate, the learning, the expertise necessary to do the work, but we should hate the authority which comes with it.
Right. So it's not talking about the lay person and his attitude toward the rabbinate. It's talking about the rabbi himself should hate the authority within the rabbinate, within his job. The authority itself, he shouldn't fall in love with that part of it. Herschel Schechter, he's actually in the context talking about women rabbis. So he says, well, women, one of the prime values that are preached to women is the idea of modesty. And the idea of being a rabbi or a cantor or a Baal Koreh is deeply immodest. So then how can everyone be a rabbi, a cantor, or a chazan? Well, he says being a rabbi, a chazan, or a Baal Koreh involves a necessary compromise of one's sense of modesty.
So that assumes men should not be modest.
That's correct. Should not. Oh.
It's sort of absurdity, isn't it?
It assumes that men who do this are being immodest. Right. And they're saying that based on a verse in Mishlei, Kol Gvuda Bat Melech Pnima, that a woman's primary value, go to any Beis Yaakov school, I'll tell you this, a chief value for a woman is being modest.
It's only because a man dictated that.
True. But in any event, so you can argue with his theory about women rabbis, but if you want to have more women leadership, come this Shabbos to hear Nechama Price, who is doing as much as a person can do without being a rabbi to advance women's scholarship. But in any event, he says being a Jewish leader of any sort, it is a compromise of modesty. Let's not kid ourselves. It is not a modest thing to do, and that's why we try to refuse it, try not get into it, and if you're in it, you try not to enjoy that part of it. It's not something we want to do. Shuls.
But some rabbis I have known were the most modest people I have ever known.
Thank you. Right.
You get 10 points, Steve.
And the opposite also. Yeah, right.
Anyway, it's a good question. Moving along. So the institution of Kohanim, well, maybe it really shouldn't have been, says the Sforno. The institution of the rabbinate, it involves compromising a very fundamental value of modesty. Shuls, right? So think about it. Moses, the most modest person ever, he had a deep compromise on his modesty, and that's why it was murder for him to accept that job. It took him 20 days. It's not clear, is that the model? Is that what you're supposed to do? What Moses did, that's the model for everybody. He's supposed to hesitate. He's supposed to say no. But what's the proof that's not true? That he went too far? God was angry, so it seems like it's not the thing to do. So, but maybe it's an impossibility. There's no perfect measure. He chose him. He could have chosen someone else who would have jumped at it, right? Someone else would have jumped, or they refused once. Yes.
I heard.
Yes.
When I was a kid, that you're not supposed to refuse an aliyah.
No. You. That's a good question. You should refuse a little bit at the beginning, right?
Okay.
My kids were very strict about this rule. My kids were very strict about this rule, and when they first came to shul and they were little, the Gabbayim had to get used to their tricks. They would say, no. So the Gabbai would walk away. So then the kids were like, oh, rats. hoping to get that. Okay, but moving along. So it becomes kind of pro forma. Moving along, shuls, right? An institution of a shul. Sounds like a great thing. Let's take a look at the Rambam. What does the Rambam say? 2 passages from the Rambam about shuls. Who would like to read that? Diana, would you like to read that for us? Number 4. Go ahead.
Wherever 10 Jews live, it is necessary to establish a place for them to congregate for prayer at a time for each prayer service. This place is called a
Knesset. Yeah, it's interesting. Why did the Rambam tell you what it's called? Who cares what it's called? Call it a community center. I don't know. Call it Temple at Israel. What do I care? Why does he tell you what it's called?
Because he likes names that you can't pronounce.
Beit Knesset.
A shul is a Yiddish word.
I want to suggest anywhere, maybe. It's just a place to gather. Right? It reminds us of the Sforno. Any place where God will mention His name, I will come there and bless you. Could be. Wherever Jews are gathered, that's where God is. God follows the people. Good. I want to suggest another possibility, no offense to anybody, but it could be He's telling you, since a synagogue has a table and it has a menorah and it's instead of the temple, we don't have a temple anymore, maybe you'd call it a mikdash, some sort of sanctuary. After all, Talmud in Megillah calls it a mikdash ma'at, a small sanctuary. He says, no, don't call it a temple. All right? Okay.
So what do they do there if those 10 people are 5 men and 5 women?
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, well, right. It's a place of holiness. In a place of holiness, there needs to be separation. But
This law of tefillah, did he?
sometimes 10 women could constitute a minyan. For instance, many people say that for Megillah reading, if you had a choice between a place with 10 men and 10 women, could be, according to some rabbis, there's no preference of the place with the 10 men or 10 women. The woman could go either place because 10 women, for something that they're obligated in fully, is the same as 10 men. So there could be times.
But is he serious about wherever 10 Jews live?
Let's see. It says Mi Yisrael. In Hebrew, there's no such thing as neuter, so Yisrael is always is masculine. Israel, right? Moving along. This place. Okay. Continue. Who's reading? Larissa?
The inhabitants of the
Yes.
city can compel each other to construct a synagogue and to purchase scrolls containing the Torah, the prophets, and the sacred writings.
He's talking about a synagogue. Why does he mention the scrolls? Right, an essential part of a synagogue is the scroll. As a matter of fact, Rabbi Schechter argues that what gives even the temple in Jerusalem its sanctity is the Ten Commandments that are in the ark. As a matter of fact, there's a question here: is that ark in the room, or is it outside the room? You see how it's in the wall there? Could be that it's a problem, but usually the ark is in the room, and therefore that gives it the sanctity. Moving along. So you're supposed to have one. Very good. Next, and it's important. So now we got to another institution called the minyan within the shul. Very often you have the minyan. You could have a minyan outside the shul, but very often the two go together. Who would like to continue reading that? Oh, Jeff.
Communal prayer is always heard, even when there are transgressors among the congregation. The Holy One, blessed be He, does not reject the prayer of the many.
So that's why it's a great institution. You pray with a community. Even if you're wicked, somebody else is wicked, everybody's prayers are accepted. Continue.
Therefore, a person should include himself in the community and should not pray alone whenever he is able to pray with the community.
Yes. Good. There are two elements here. To include yourself means the following. If you're going on the road and you're traveling and you pass, I don't know, what are you going, Route 40, and you're getting out into the woods over there. So there's an idea you should say Tfilat HaDerech, the Wayfarer's Prayer. And we say, may God bring us, you're driving by yourself, may God bring us to peace, and may our travels go in peace. Who's us? There's nobody there. So he said, no, there must be other people on the road. You're praying for them too. You always want to include yourself with, even linguistically, conceptually, with the prayers of the community. Go ahead.
One should always spend the early morning and evening hours in the synagogue, for prayer will not be heard at all times except when recited in the synagogue.
Right. That's an exaggeration. That's Talmudic hyperbole. It means like this. It's the only time that prayers are heard all the time is in the synagogue. In other words, he got it from the Talmud. Talmud claims to have some mystical knowledge, right? But it doesn't mean that elsewhere it's not heard. It just means that in the synagogue, it's always heard. How do you know that? Because they say that kol be'asara shchin tesharya. And anywhere where there are 10 Jews, the divine presence is there. And then tonight we're going to daven at 7:40. So at 7:41, there's an idea that God comes and sees if there's a minyan. Even if there's no minyan, he's there anyway. And then he gets mad, there's no minyan. But there is an idea that he's in a synagogue even without a minyan. So this is a mystical knowledge. It's an interesting question.
That's why Robertson said that God doesn't hear just prayers.
Oh, that guy, yeah. God doesn't listen to the...
Because they're not in shul.
That's excluding women then, if it's just for services in the morning and...
It's a good way, right. Based on this, a woman should pray, right. Based on this, a woman should pray in shul every day. And we don't find the custom that women go running every single day, every single evening to shul. Right. It could be that women function on the sort of pre-shul model in which the Sforno model that's why women developed a whole literature of tchinas. There's little prayers that they say while they're doing household chores, while they're at home, while they're watching the baby. They say these prayers for the baby, for this, for the husband, for the mikvah. They say these little prayers. They're not in a shul. There's no minyan. Could be that women function in general on a more ritual-less plane. It could be, right? They don't seem to need tefillin. They don't seem to need tzitzis. It's an argument. Is it apologetics? I don't know. It's interesting, but it's a possible argument. It's an argument that somehow the women are functioning on this pre-ritualistic plane. Yes?
I think we just assume that women are so righteous, they don't need the minyan.
If you're
Right, you're right.
Individual prayers of women, especially when they cry.
Right. There's an idea that right, whether you accept this or not, there's an idea that a wife's tears are quick to come, and therefore you have to be extra sensitive to women, to your wife. And clearly God hears tears. Yeah, there's a separate key to heaven that's open with tears. But we must...
Maybe God had nothing to say about it. Man did, and he dictated that women are going to stay home.
It is convenient. Just picture if everyone had to run to Minyan in the morning, you'd have to have daycare at 6 o'clock in the morning. It wouldn't be so practical. But moving along, let's see. So anyone who has a synagogue and they don't pray with the congregation is called a bad neighbor. We should know this. You got to come to Minyan, otherwise you're a bad neighbor. Moving along. Now, so that's point. Point is, Minyan is good. God is there. Prayers are answered. Prayers are answered communally. Shul, it's an obligation. It's an obligation to have a shul. And very good. There's an idea, stories in the Talmud, that even destroyed synagogues, they could hear the footsteps of God in the synagogue. Good. Counterpoint. Talmud Brachot 30b. Who'd like to read it? Ben?
Rabbi and Rabbi, even though there were 12 synagogues in Tiberias, they only prayed between the beams where they studied.
In other words, let's say I give my class here. So sometimes I have to go to the JCC for a program, so I have to daven mincha in the shul. Could be instead of davening at my seat over there, which is kind of haughty, I should daven right here. This is where I teach my class. Daven here, that's the holy place where you teach every day. That's your holy place. That's your special place. So where he wanted to study. Now, how do we interpret this? What do you mean he prayed where he studied? Did he say, guys, I got to pray where I studied. Come, let's make a minyan in my place where I studied. Or did he pray by himself instead of going to a minyan, instead of going to shul? Yes?
I thought it meant not to go to shul hopping. Like wherever your shul is, that's where you
Okay, you're talking about the idea of makom kavua, of a set place.
That's why
That's
synagogues, I was getting confused.
sorry?
It says 12 synagogues, so I was assuming.
There were 12 synagogues. He could have, there is a concept that you should have one particular place for your prayer. Good. That if you daven in a particular seat, you shouldn't change your seat all the time. This is your place for prayer. Good. But now we're not even getting into that. You're supposed to pray in a synagogue, but this rabbi said, I'm not praying in a synagogue, I'm praying where I studied, a different place, not in the synagogue.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Where was this?
I understand.
Was it a basement? Right. Now, two interpretations. We're not going to read it. I'm going to ask you to look inside. According to the Rambam, does this mean that you can pray without a minyan if it's where you studied? Take a look at the
Well, it
Rambam.
doesn't say how many people were there.
Right. So therefore, we're going to find two interpretations: the Rambam and the Meiri. Look at the Rambam. What does he say? Everyone, take a look. The Rambam.
Apparently, they didn't have to have a minyan.
No.
They would pray only
Give me.
where they studied.
Give me the line. Give me the line in the Rambam that says, the Rambam, in other words, it says Rambam Ibid 8.3. You have two English paragraphs. A study hall and the above applies. Find where it says. Find where it says.
Where he says you can only participate in communal prayer.
Right. When does the Talmud say that he would pray where he studied? If he could find a minyan in that place. No way the Rambam is going to let you get off the hook with praying where you studied in your holy place. Let's say we know Rabbi Greenblatt had a beautiful place where he studied. Rabbi Nata Yibad L'chaim has a special place, his desk where he studies. So you say, oh, that place is holier. They should just daven there. So the Rambam says, no, only if they get a minyan there. Like Rabbi Nata makes a minyan in his house. Okay, that's fine. Now, Meiri, however, what does he say? Let's take a look. Bottom of the page.
You can pray there alone.
You could pray there alone. The Meiri interprets the Talmud in Brachot to mean that if you are in a holy kind of a place, a special place that's your special place because you studied there, the place of study is more important, and you could pray there without a minyan. There were many great rabbis who prayed without a minyan. They include Rabbi Soloveitchik, Rabbi Yehudner, all kinds of famous rabbis used to pray very often without a minyan. Rabbi Soloveitchik often would come to the yeshiva and he would just ask for the Torah reading. Monday and Thursday I wanted to have a Torah. I got to read for him a few times, thank God. So there is such an idea. Some people like to pray at a certain time, like when the sun rises. So they don't pray with a minyan, they pray exactly when the sun rises. Some people don't like when the shul starts. They should start davening too late. They have a minyan at 9:30, 10 o'clock. So they say, I'm going to pray by myself. I want to pray the official time when you're supposed to pray, not the later time. So there is an idea, sometimes exceptions, to this idea. No, the holy place of that man, it overrode the idea of a synagogue and a minyan. So there's a cutting edge of the idea of a minyan. Now we have another problem with a
How do you
minyan.
know if you're holy enough to do that? And you're
Good.
assuming that you're so, I don't know, I'm just asking.
Learn it.
Right. Is it subjective? Is it subjective? It feels good?
Because then they think it's okay.
Right. There's a problem. You still called a bad neighbor. According to the Rambam, you're still a bad neighbor. But the Rambam's not the Meiri. Maybe the Meiri would say, no, if you're not going to pray with the community because you have a holier place where you're praying, maybe that's okay. Does this get into subjectivity, which we're getting into next, which is, there's a big problem, a big drawback in praying with a minyan. What is it? Big drawback in praying communally with a minyan.
Not everybody can do it.
Talking, people can't get there. What else?
Pray at a different,
Different pace. Different pace. What else?
Well, I mean, you're just.
You're behind.
To me, I'm getting such a bad picture of all this because it doesn't seem like the God that I thought would be, a God that discriminates or doesn't accept people with blemishes or people, the infirm or whatever, but he can't hear the prayer unless they can get to a.
Well, one second. About the again, going back to the blemishes, the Rambam said that is ridiculous. It's just the Torah has to do that because people will think that religion is a joke. But really, God could love somebody who's disabled more than somebody who's not disabled. But just so, according to the Rambam, that law is very much a concession to human frailty and human. What's a more sophisticated word? The human condition, human obsessions. Yeah, but you're raising another point, right? You like the Sforno, that wherever God calls His name, God will come and bless you. If you mention God's name, that's where God will come and bless you. So that's the idea of the Gemara in Brachos. That's the idea of the Meiri. Wherever is a holy place, the rabbi's having a holy experience. He always teaches Torah. He learns Torah all day, or how many hours he learns. He learns in a particular place. It creates a great aura for him in that place. So that's where he's going to daven. He doesn't care about the minyan, right? So that's fine. Other people can't get to a minyan. God always hears the prayers of those who pour out their hearts. We say it in the Ashrei. God hears all those who call Him in truth. No question about it. But on the other hand, there's this value called the synagogue. So that's the limitation. This is the cutting edge. How are we going to deal with this? And also there's another problem. You didn't mention distraction. Distraction. You're in the synagogue. Is that the best place to concentrate on prayers? This guy is talking. He's praying. Right? Sometimes the prayers of other people interrupt you. You're trying to say this. You can't hear what you're saying because someone else is saying something else, and then they go too fast. And is it really the best place for prayer? So Rav Nachman here outlines the whole idea of hitbodedut. He was a big proponent of hitbodedut, of being secluded in prayer. He didn't invent the idea. You have it in Rabbeinu Bachye, the Tzor Hamor, all over the place. Rabbis talk about it, but he was very big into it and he practiced it. This great mystic, the Rav Nachman of Breslov. And he says you should do it at night. For in the day, I'll just summarize. He said in the day, people are busy doing things. You're not doing anything. Everyone else is doing things. And then you say, I'll pray at night right over here. Over here, people are having conversations. They had conversations. Even if I come here at night, nobody's here. But people during the day, they had coffee over here. I can't, it's tainted, right? I have to go somewhere where nobody had any conversations. Nobody did anything. Like the woods would be a good place. And that's what Rav Nachman was really into. And so he claims that's where you can really can picture the whole world as nothing, and you can just make yourself nothing in front of God. This is what he pictures. Yes?
I heard someplace a long time ago when I first got into this.
Yes.
This stuff.
Yes.
That you weren't supposed to daven outside.
Ah, yes. Well, no, you can daven outside just in a wide open space is a problem. Because let's say you're davening, you look out and there's everything there. There's a parking lot and then there are houses and there are people walking around. You should daven in front of a tree or in front of a wall or something. So more like the hotel, you should daven where there aren't so many distracting thoughts. In a corner against a wall is a good place to daven. In a shul, we all daven facing the wall. Yes?
So this that he was doing, was it separate? Didn't he still just daven with everyone else, and then this is a separate thing.
Yes, this is in addition.
It's not saying you have to cut out what you're supposed to be doing the 3 times.
In theory, this is in addition. However, right, I would imagine that some Hasidim, that did only this, that they did their full prayers like this. But I can't speak, I'd have to research it further, but I would imagine that some replaced the regular prayers with this private prayer. But yes, here clearly he's talking about the middle of the night. It's not talking about Ma'ariv, he's talking about general. Now, however, the Ramchal says on the next page, he says, you can't take it to an extreme. He says you should always tie yourself to other people. You shouldn't engage in Torah alone. You have to connect to the good, to other good people. Right? So he says you can't take it to an extreme. The Mor of Hashem of Kolonimus Kalman Epstein, who was both a Hasidic Rebbe and also a critic of some negative tendencies in Hasidus, in early Hasidus, lived in the 18th century toward a little bit of the 19th century. He said, look what happened to Jacob. Why was he by himself? He was going on a tour. He was enjoying the night to stars. He was meditating. He was meditating. And what happened? He was attacked by the bad angel. If you think that you're going to just have this great spiritual experience in the woods, you could have a totally different experience in the woods. You don't know what kind of experience you're going to have in the woods, right? And there are negative forces that could be working against you. He says the same thing about Yosef. Yosef wasn't alone in the house because he was washing the dishes. He was alone because he was meditating. But look what happened. The wife came in and he was in big trouble, because that's what happens when you're alone. A lot of things can happen. So this is both the cutting edge of, he's both to do it. The idea of seclusion is the cutting edge of praying with a minion. You say, well, maybe praying in seclusion is better than praying with a minion. And the cutting edge of seclusion is that if you're really secluded, you could run into more trouble. There's a certain danger, which leads us back to the community.
This may be even more controversial, but growing up in a different denomination of Judaism, we were taught that one of the best things about being Jewish was that it didn't matter where you were. You could be a Jew, you could pray anywhere, whether it was in a shul, in a temple, or by yourself at any time except during Yizkor. That the only time you needed to be with a group of people was for Yizkor.
Oh, no. I would not, I would say.
You could say the Shema by yourself every morning.
Yeah,
You could say morning prayers, you could...
let me, okay. So, I got you.
Coming from a
Okay. I got you. I would clean it up a little bit like this. I would say, you can pray anywhere. So unless it's dirty or disrespectful to pray in that place. You don't pray in bathrooms.
Yeah, well, right.
You can pray to God. You don't mention the verses. You don't mention the Torah in a bathroom. Okay. Even in a bathroom, you could pray, but you can't mention God's name. You can say the Shachrit or Mincha Ma'ariv in any place as long as it's respectful. It is good to pray all the prayers with a minyan and in a shul. Even if there's no minyan, it's good to pray in the shul for Shachrit, Mincha, Ma'ariv, all the different prayers. Yizkor, maybe a little bit. It's not really exactly a requirement. It's a custom that you should pray with a shul. Yes. So yes, that you're getting to the gist of it. Isn't Judaism sort of not Catholic? You don't have to go through the priest. You don't have to pray in this church, in this particular synagogue. You do have direct access to God. Isn't that what the essence of Judaism is? That so we're not Hasidim. We don't need the Rebbe to get to per se. Every time we pray, every time we need something to get to God, everyone who calls to God in truth could be heard. Yes. On the other hand, we have all these institutions. We have the Kohen, he gives the blessings. We have he brings certain sacrifices. We have the synagogue, we have the rabbi, we have the cantor, we have the Balkorei. We do have certain intermediaries of sorts. There are Hasidic rabbis who seem to, lead us more in the direction of using intermediaries. And so that is the cutting edge of it. And just to...
The rabbi, what she said is absolutely correct.
Yes.
It may not be the ideal place to pray, but it is permissible, Orthodox religion, just as much as Reform, to pray any place you are at any time and any circumstance.
That's correct. Now, So, and I would say, if you ask, why join a congregation? Why be part of a congregation? Not join, but why be part? You can learn from others. Sometimes you need others for a lot of different emotional, physical support. They need you in your prayers, right? And there's a Talmudic mystical idea that if you pray for others, you'll be answered first. So, but finally, another downfall of communal institutions. I'm sorry, we have to end because we got Mincha coming up. We have the communal prayers coming up. But another downfall is proxy, religion by proxy. Another downfall of an institution is feeling exactly what you're saying, that you need, that without the rabbi, you can't learn Torah. Without the cantor, you can't say a prayer. Without the synagogue, your prayers won't be heard. Right? This is very much contrary to the very egalitarian sense that God is close to all those who call him in truth. And look at any of the people in the Torah who were in a jam. Hagar, when she was losing her son, and anybody in the Torah, Hannah, anybody who needed something, they called out. Javet's prayer. It's in the Book of Chronicles. He said, God, give me more wheat and I'll give you a lot of stuff. And it's a great prayer. So we have this notion of the proxy. There's in fact a debate in the Talmud of should the leader of the congregation just say the Shemona Esrei for everybody, and that's it. Let the leader just say the Shemona Esrei, and let everyone just hear it. It's too many words. Nobody has sitters. Nobody knows the words. Let him just lead it. Or the rabbis say no. Just like the leader has to say their prayers, everybody has to say their prayers. Should you have these? So what's my point? What's the point of all this? The point is that whether God creates these institutions, such as a temple, such as a Kohen, or whether we create it, such as a shul, such as a minyan, which are rabbinic human institutions and inventions, either way, they are, even when God makes them, they're in response to human condition. And the human condition is flawed. So therefore, all the institutions are flawed by nature because they're there because of the very flawed nature of the human being. We need glory, we need community, we need support, we need to see wealth and honor and splendor. We had some other suggestions that wealth and that honor is an inherent value. It's not just a human construct. The rabbis are compromising their modesty. So is a cantor and a balkore, right? A community can get in the way of your concentration, but don't kid yourself. When you go out and you pray in your living room, you may get distracted with 16,000 other things. We don't know what's going to happen there in your living room, in your forest, and wherever else that you think is a great place to pray. So it's not such a silly idea. Sure, you don't need a million to commune with God. Some of those meaningful prayers in history, in the Tanakh itself, there was nobody there. Hannah was prayed all by herself in the sanctuary. But the rabbis assert that there is a power of praying with a minyan, praying with a synagogue. So today, when people are questioning institutions, when the statistics are down, it's not as bad as you think, but there are less millennials, people between 18 and 32, who want to belong to a synagogue, value organized religion, institutions. They're questioning the whole nature of organized religion and institutions. I would say the response should be as follows. Not that, you have to go to synagogue. We have to recognize that there are pitfalls and downfalls, and that it's conceptually, we don't need these things. Conceptually, you can do without it. But there are reasons why these institutions were made. They're made because of our very frailties. The nature of the human being, which hasn't changed. It doesn't matter which generation you're in or what. The nature that we need support, and we need to support others, and that there's a holiness and a power that comes from the community. This is something that is eternal. So this is, I hope, some of the cutting edges of this issue of the organized religion, of community and communal institutions. And next week, God willing, we will look at kindness and love. Sounds like a great idea, right? What's the cutting edge of that idea? Kindness, love, where are the limitations of kindness and love? Thank you for joining us.